I want to show you something strange I've noticed. So we're going through this whole supposed coronavirus plot type thing that's happening now, but interestingly enough, we have an alignment where almost all the planets are by the constellation of Corona. There's actually a constellation of Corona, and round about the time we entered it, specifically Saturn, which has to do with limitations, was when we began having this whole coronavirus thing. I found this like very interesting, but let's start with the planet Saturn. Here it is currently in the sky. And Saturn is associated with limitations, restrictions. I'll show you where the Corona constellation is. But yeah, Saturn is associated with limitations, lack, not having enough, but also structure, being organized, hard work. And it's kind of... So first let me show you this. It's sitting close between Capricorn and Sagittarius. But look what happens if we go down. It's literally right in the same neighborhood as Corona Australis. There's a couple of Corona constellations here, but they're all pretty much in the same part of the sky. Let me see. Whoops, spelled that wrong. Okay, so check here. We have that one I just showed you, Corona Australis. Let's try this one. This Corona one is by... it's kind of by Sagittarius, which is also in the same neighborhood as Capricorn. This same part of the sky, basically. I mean, I have all the constellations of the zodiac, from Aquarius to Gemini. We currently find ourselves here, but it's quite a few planets that are currently in this part of the sky. We seem to have a weird alignment. So here we have Saturn. I'm going to go backwards in time, show you when they entered this constellation. But here we have Saturn. Let's check, where is Jupiter and all of this? Jupiter has to do with wealth and money and all that jazz. It's also almost right next to Saturn, round the corner, and also by this Corona, Australis, and yeah, around about the same region of the sky. By the way, Saturn and the constellation of Capricorn here and Corona, by the way, they're all associated with the crown. Corona means crown, and they all have similar symbology that you can search. Corona means crown. The planet Saturn is based on the Roman myth and mythology of this very evil god Saturn that would eat his own children, and he was like this king. That's why he was associated with the crown, and the crown was often called Corona, and that's where we get our word crown. And Saturn, basically, it's the constellation it belongs in is actually Capricorn. So Saturn is sitting neatly in its place, and it's by its other place it belongs, basically the Corona constellation. So yeah, a lot of crown symbolism, Corona symbolism. And it's associated with a lot of negative things as well. Not necessarily that it is negative, but it usually puts limits on things, restricts things. And a lot of people point out that, would say that our modern idea of Satan actually originates from Saturn in mythology. And maybe if you go back even further, we have the Set of Egyptian mythology, and some mystery cults call themselves Scythians, like Satan. Oh, here's another cool one. There's Sobek. Sobek was a crocodile god. So it's a very weird part of the sky. But notice we have Saturn here. We have Jupiter. And then we also have Pluto. All by this coronavirus constellation. It's not a coronavirus constellation. It's a Corona constellation. But here we got Pluto here too. And we've got the moon. Currently as it is. Let's see what else. So we got Mercury. Where's Mercury in all this? Oh, by the way, when the world went on lockdown, Mercury was basically going through a retrograde. So Mercury's on another part of the sky, Gemini, but it was going through a retrograde when everyone went into lockdown. Venus, where's Venus? Okay, and Venus is sitting in Taurus. Okay, so those are the current dates of things. Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune. Where's Neptune? Okay. So the planet associated with Saturn, with limitations, sitting there by a corona. Pluto is often seen as a problematic planet. Pluto generally tends to break things down and stuff and cause havoc and upheaval. It does have its good associations. It causes upheaval and destroys old things so it can create new things or bring new things into being. Jupiter's a planet of wealth and abundance, and it's in Capricorn, which is limitation. Saturn is by it, which is limitation. So, and we kind of see economies around the world are crashing and all that jazz. So, but let's see, we're now in June. We're in the 6th of June. Let's go backwards into the past to when this whole coronavirus thing was announced, which was around about December 2019. See what happened. Jupiter, you see Jupiter is beginning to enter into the Sagittarius / Corona constellation. The Sun is beginning to get there. The Sun is an amplifier of energy. So we've got the Sun here, we've got Pluto, we've got Venus, so we had even more of a link. I'm going to round about Christmas. It was roughly round about there that the first cases were supported. So there we've got Saturn. In here we have Pluto sitting there. We've got Venus, an alignment of the stars and planets all sitting in here. We even had Mercury, which has to do with communication. And actually this is when the coronavirus thing was announced, when they first communicated it. And we have Mercury, which is communication in their constellation, and here we have Corona. But Saturn, let's see, Saturn, when did Saturn enter this part of the sky? Saturn, going back, let's go back in time. Yeah, you see, now obviously, so around about 2014, kind of entered Scorpio, 2016, 2017, around about 2018 it began hitting Sagittarius. It's around about 2019 where it's directly by Corona. Interesting. Pluto, so we have an alignment of the planets. What's also I find interesting is I've heard some people say that the 2012 Mayan calendar, which means it talks about an end of an age, not necessarily the end of the world. There are a lot of people thought it was the end of the world. But interestingly, the Mayan calendar, I heard some people say that the dates were actually a bit off. It wasn't exactly 2012. It was around about this period. And the Coptic calendar, 2020 on the Coptic calendar is actually 2012, which I find quite interesting. And we are entering into a new age. Quite interestingly, Saturn is in Capricorn, but yeah, it looks like a couple of the planets, Pluto might enter into Aquarius. Yeah, it's just quite interesting that because all we've ever heard about on the news has been this coronavirus. That's all they talk about. And we literally in by this corona constellation. This is a pretty negative part of the sky anyway. So you get a lot of the stars relate to negative things in mythology. You get Corona that ate his own children. Here we have Sobek, which is the Egyptian crocodile god, which wasn't necessarily seen as bad, but he's quite a primordial, aggressive god that describes instinctive human natures and was associated with things like war and stuff. And we have Draco somewhere up here.